to another episode of TDB, episode number 540. Having some more raw pour, 2 raw pour in a row. In fact, the ordering of the episodes is a little different than what we normally do. We usually finish up on the raw and start with the oolong and stuff. But we are doing some raw. So today we are actually doing one of the teas we talked about in one of the previous episodes.
Yes.
It is the 2015 Biyun Hao Lishan Gongcha. So it's a higher end Yiwu blend. It is sold by TWL as well as the Jade Leaf, so you can get it from a couple Western facing vendors. We're doing this tea partly to see if Denny likes it, if it's something he thinks is worth pursuing or not. So we'll see.
And I appreciate the generosity. So I've been drinking, as part of the Pumador series, went through some sort of mid-range stuff, and James and I ended up making a purchase there. Interesting. What's the year on this one?
2015, so 10 years old. Yeah.
Okay. And actually, I didn't even notice the liqueur. Anyway, I've been paying a bit more attention to some of these older teas. Got a couple other samples off of James to compare. And it's tough. I'll say that. It's tough for these semi-aged teas because you're really trying to figure out what these are going to be like. And there's a trade-off, for me at least, thinking through intensity on one hand with a younger tea to a really full-bodied, rich experience later on in the life of the tea. And how do you balance that? So I've been trying to figure that out while drinking these teas and seeing what things I think are going to appear later on that I'm going to enjoy. Relying pretty much exclusively on James's expert opinion on this. But noticing some things too. Some of them have a really sour thing.
Sure.
That I don't know. Well, does that age out?
I would think a sour. No, it depends on the nature of it, but
right.
Yeah, I would think that's storage related.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Is that the 754 you found to be somewhat sour?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that sample might have been a little dry.
Okay.
So maybe if it was rehumidified in a Pumador, it might have been.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways,
Cheers.
Cheers. And so this one is interesting. Lishan Gongcha. It's not an area. It's a blend that this boutique producer Biyun Hao does, which is one reason why I think Teas We Like has sort of talked about this tea as one that could possibly age a bit longer because it's kind of blended, so you have those different layers and those complexity kind of baked into the tea leaves themselves.
And that's one thing also that's interesting, the single sources versus blending, and then the price comparisons and stuff. Because on one hand, you kind of want something that's like really pure and to its like original source or whatever. But if it's lacking certain things that you can blend into it to balance out the flavor profile, then
yeah.
So
I'm very pro blend. I think blending is usually the way to go if you want to go there. While I think you can have interesting single source tea, I think blending is kind of, at least has a much stronger historical precedent on what's been more interesting.
And it makes sense from a production side for tea producers because you can create a much more self-similar profile year to year. Blend
consistent.
Versus having something that's much less, much more dependent on the specific region. Hey, maybe there's a drought or just different conditions in that year specifically, or too much rain there and some little pocket of microclimate, and it influences the tea. So anyway.
Yeah.
Lots of questions.
This first tea, which we have hardly talked about, has some nice mouth cooling action, a decently nice body, I'd say, for Yiwu.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say this tastes like a Yiwu tea so far?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
ready to have already, but I think it needs some time, although we're still not getting into the depth and intensity of it. For me, I've been looking at kind of like the 4th steeping to be the steeping that I'm judging the tea by.
Sure.
Or like 3rd, something like that. But yeah, really sweet. The color of the actual tea is fairly dark.
Yeah, it's getting, it's seen some age. presumably Taiwan mostly, I would
Okay.
guess. Just because Biyun Hao is a Taiwanese producer.
Sure. Interesting. The double lion had a bit of kind of a more of an herbaceous thing than this, I think. This is a bit more of a woody thing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, the Yiwu tea's aging has always been kind of a challenging subject, just because I feel like certain teas that are just like upfront and bitter and punchy, which Yiwu teas are usually not,
Right.
you have a much clearer trajectory on how it might potentially mellow.
Mm-hmm.
Yiwu teas, I'm not saying they're not going to age, but their road to an age profile, I think, is a little different.
Yeah, right. It's less common for you to have that kind of acrid, chewed up Tylenol bitterness that you would get, we talked about on some episodes,
Yeah.
in a tea that's, an Yiwu tea, even at, 5 years in. Whereas you can have that acrid vibe for some of these teas, like
Yeah.
20 years plus.
Yeah, like the double line is a
Yeah.
good example.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the 20-year-old tea.
Mm.
Yeah, what I like about this tea so far, and I have not had this tea a lot either. I actually recently got a cake from Marketplace, so I actually don't know which vendor it's from originally, from Snowgrassy, so thank you to Snowgrassy for selling this at a good price to me. So I'm still figuring out the tea myself, but what stands out to me a lot is kind of the aftertaste of this.
Definitely.
Definitely kind of more of that returning aftertaste in the throat and things.
Mhm.
We actually just had a pour right before this, and
Yeah.
I think that is kind of the main difference for me in terms of like kind of, I don't know how I would describe the difference between like this 10-year-old Yiwu and a Jigmai.
Absolutely more intense, and the returning profile. I'm getting a lot of nice fruit in the mouth, just hanging out. But it's not. I don't know. It's good now. It's not so intense, and
Agreed, yeah.
yeah, I don't think it needs.
This is not
tons
one
and
where
tons
it's
of
like,
time.
I absolutely must age this more.
Yeah.
It's like, you could drink this too
Yeah.
if you want.
Yeah. To your point though, it is confusing to wonder or figure out what are these Iwus going to look like in 30 years, or rather at 30 years of age. Because they're just, are you going to get those kind of like deep garden vegetable patch things? Is it going to be where's the sweetness going to be? I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. It's hard to figure this stuff out.
Right. And if you talk to kind of some of the old hats, the people that have been doing this much longer than we have, they do talk about kind of that aftertaste and certain aspects that are going to stay with the tea. So just kind of how the flavor lingers in your mouth. The initial flavors and stuff like that is obviously going to change. And some of that bitterness and pungency that you can get for younger teas can also potentially evolve and change, like smoke and stuff. That could definitely go away. But these Yiwu teas don't necessarily aren't high bitterness teas to begin with.
Yeah.
They aren't like usually terribly smoky. I'm not getting any smoke from this one.
No. Maybe a little bit of that peatiness from the kind of grassy peatiness, but it's really light. Obviously it's not a fresh cut green grass bitterness. More on the kind of hay complex towards a little peatiness.
It does have a good pungency in the mouth, though, I will say. This is not like straight sweet Yiwu where
Not at
it's
all.
like sugar cane and
Yeah.
candy,
Yeah.
which you'll sometimes get, which is probably a profile you should be a little bit skeptical of aging. This
Right.
one does have that kind of resinous
Totally.
quality.
Yeah, totally agree. Kind of like a nice deep sandalwood.
Yeah.
This, for me, I don't have enough experience to know, is that a flavor? So some things I can be like, this is not my favorite kind of thing. Is it off? It's not quite off-putting, but is it going to change over time? Is that lemongrass thing going to completely, be gone? But I know at least with this one, how it stands today, I'm enjoying it. So is that a good sign that it will be improved in the future? I don't know, honestly. A tea like this that's 15 years old,
10.
roughly. Sorry, 10. 2015? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. 10 years old. There's still a lot of time
There's
on it. And so, I don't know when the sweet spot would be for something like this. But I enjoy the profile at least at first glance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's got promise. It tastes, the high notes of it are really approachable and quite tasty today. But also I think some of the basier deep notes will be interesting evolution in time. The nose I'm getting on it, I don't taste nearly as much.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So the other Yiwu brand that we did mention, Dragon Tea House, we'll try at some point too, and it's very different than this. That one I would say taste is a little more category defined from Yiwu.
Okay.
Also, this is a blend, so always interesting to take a look at the leaves and see. There's a little bit of a varied quality to them. This is obviously not a blend where we're getting from 100 different sources. It's, I believe, 3, but still, it still qualifies as a blend.
Yeah, absolutely. You can just see by some of the oxidation levels of the different leaves. The actual cake itself is in great shape, and the leaves are nice and big and in whole pieces for the most part. Interesting. Yeah, I'm still. This is one of those things where, unlike my typical kind of trust my gut, I actually probably would trust experts more on something like this.
Sure.
People who really have been around for the block for a long time and had had these old teas and have them still.
Sure.
And kind of crowdsource this stuff for me at this point.
Part of the problem though is like you can sort of use that to narrow it down, but then there's a point at which these experts don't necessarily agree 100% with each other.
Yeah.
And it's that point where you're like, okay, who do I trust? Because I'm sure not everyone thinks this is going to age well.
Right.
I think other people, certainly Marco over at Cheese We Like has this in a hot box, so he obviously believes that this is going to be good. Do you want another?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. I don't know. I mean, from my point of view, this is a decently strong, but not overwhelmingly strong Yiwu tea. Good aftertaste.
Yeah.
Definitely has kind of the proper structure. I don't exactly know what this would be like in 10 years, but...
And when you're going to go and spend a good amount of money on tea
Sure.
to age, are you looking to buy tea? And we kind of talked about this in the other episodes, so feel free to watch back in history a little bit, but are you trying to buy teas that you expected a kind of a minimum to age for 10 years so that you're getting a good value premium on that? Because you could be buying teas hypothetically today that are already ready to drink today. They're just going to be really expensive. So how far back do you look from when you want to be drinking some of these higher quality, nicer teas in terms of years to get a sense of it? Is it 10 years? Is it 15 years on average?
I think it's just a calculation. A lot of it depends. I mean, most of what I bought is historically like 2000s, like 2005 to 2009 is a range of, well, probably actually more like 5 to 7 is where I bought a lot of my teas. And that's just because it's like cheaper than teas from before, even though I probably prefer the teas from before. And I don't know, it's a challenging calculation because it is a little different from everyone. And storage is also going to matter. I think the way you set your storage up will probably get the teas ready to drink sooner than my storage, which is not heated. In general, I don't need to necessarily buy tea that is ready to drink now because I have so much of it. So that's also part of the calculation. I could just theoretically buy like kind of long-term aging experiments where I'm not opening it up for 20 years. Right. And like I wouldn't run out of tea to drink before then. It's an interesting calculation. It depends on the purchase. But I would say I still have mostly bought tea kind of from that era. So this would be a pretty young tea, actually, for me to buy.
Yeah. And there's also, isn't it true that the dye processing changed from 2006, 2007 or something like that, those cakes?
It's a hot debate.
Okay, got it, okay.
But the ownership of dye changed in 2004. And so that changed kind of how they did stuff.
Right.
And then 2007 is when the Pu'er bubble burst. And so they had a ton of productions they did in 2007. Like they made way more tea than I believe like previous years. So some people say it went downhill there.
Sure.
Yeah. So it can get quite complicated.
From my limited research, I've learned that there are few cases where year jumps make a big incremental difference in price. But that 2007 to 2006 age jump does have a big impact on price. Yeah,
and 2005 dye is more expensive. 2004 is also even more expensive. So it is, at that period of dye, it really is kind of like a step function each time. And then you get to 2008, 2009, it's not terribly different.
This is really actually nice. There's a really nice incensey
Yeah.
smell to this.
So if you bought something like this, would you drink it or age it or both?
Probably, well, definitely age it. Yeah, it's not my favorite now. It's still not my favorite now. It has enough sweetness today to make it really approachable and tasty. But I think it's probably more of a Purehead's tea today.
Sure.
Whereas something, it's not like I'm trying to not pay attention to the tea in the future, but something that's very cohesive ends up being almost this kind of like just, it's super smooth. I would expect this to become smoother to that point of being quite smooth and delectable in like 5 to 10 years.
There's a astringency that runs through this tea that does make me think that maybe this is more properly aged. But yeah, I do, I like this tea. I am also, trying to scope this tea out and figure out if it's something I would like.
Yeah, no, it's nice because again, there's a really beautiful front sweetness to this. It's really pleasant to know it's going to carry through as we age it, as it's aged rather. But then that deeper earthiness, that's the part that it's kind of subtle to start, but as we're drinking it, it's building, and that's the thing that I would hope would become more robust over time.
It hints at it, and I feel like that is kind of, I guess that would be the thought of the tea, is that it develops more of those aged, earthier notes.
It's nice. I was going to complain a little bit about the viscosity to start with this tea, but I think it's really improved over time. And parameters here, I don't know, what do you think you're using?
Probably about 5 grams, 70, maybe 75 milliliters.
Yeah, guy wants probably about 75% of the way full for folks out there at home. And can people pick up samples of this teas we like?
Teas we like? No.
I don't think so, right?
But Jade Leaf, probably, maybe. I'm not sure. Jade Leaf definitely sells this tea. I believe you could buy samples from them, but I'm not 100% positive.
Yeah. This is a good one, I think, to try a sample, frankly, because you can taste a lot of the promise of the Yiwu profile in this tea. There's still a lot to drink and enjoy today, but it might be interesting for you folks following along, whatever you're drinking today, but to just be trying some of these semi-aged teas to see, where do I think this is going to end up? Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, this one is also interesting because teas we like, this is one they've sold for a while. So they sold this one. This is just a few years old, I believe, like 2018, 2019.
So they believed in this for a long time.
Correct, yeah. But I never tried it when they originally released it. So I've only tried it this year. So this is the first time I've tried it. So I actually don't know exactly what it was like. But someone like Marco would have a good idea of how this is aged.
And that's where, again, it's purely like the drinker's experience. Because I bet Marco drinking this probably was, when it was first pressed or a couple years after, probably pretty intense.
Yeah.
But to still know, oh wow, there's some promise here at that young of an age, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, check this one out. Thank you, James, for the share. Subscribe to all the stuff. I'm pointing at you, which means that we're going to activate Wu-Tang. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Woo!